Hi.
Hello, Carla.
How are you?
Fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing great, especially since you're here. Um, Welcome, everybody, to Carla Astrology. Today, I have the wonderful Practical Mystic Carol.
I'm glad to be here, Carla. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, I'm so excited to finally have you on here. I mean, have you all to myself.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
I'm in the
you
chat.
know,
You're right.
usually, the last time was when we did a palmistry. We did palmistry live, which that was amazing.
Yeah, that we did a personal video. That's
Mhm.
right. And then we did one of the roundtables. I believe we did 9 and then one take 2
Yes,
together.
yes.
Lots of fun.
Oh my goodness, yes. Um, I want to welcome Susie.
Oh, hi, Susie.
She's in the chat. Hi, Susie. We have we have B.
Oh, B, great to
Hi,
see
B.
you. Oh, wonderful. I wish I could look at your nails to see what you look
I
like, baby. She's always so decorative, and I'd say, okay, I'm watching the video, but I want to see her
That's
nails.
definitely her signature.
It
We
is.
have Maria.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for joining us.
We have Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Lisa.
Thank you so much. We also have Farah. Hi, Farah.
Laura.
Ooh, we got a party going on already. Check
Yes,
this out.
yes,
This is awesome.
of course.
So let's get to know you a little bit, Carol.
Okay.
I was asking you before we went live where you're actually from, because I know you reside in Florida. So where are you from?
Originally, I was born and raised in Canada, in a little town called Joliet, which is 50 miles north of Montreal. Everybody knows where Montreal is.
Mhm.
And then at the age of 6, my mother and father decided that the United States would offer them more opportunity. So we moved to the United States and became citizens. And I lived in upstate New York right up until the age of I think 19. And then my father got a wild hair and said, okay, I'm tired of the snow and everything. Let's move to Florida. So he went to Florida. He looked around and decided on a little town. And I did not want to go. Believe me, I had to, just finishing high school, thinking of
Oh my goodness.
going into college. And of course, I went to support my family, and I wasn't yet independent enough to live on my own. So I went down and stayed in Florida about a year and a half and decided it's too much of a culture change coming up from the Tri-Cities of upstate New York. And I came back and stayed in New York, met my husband, and we had a business. And then my father called me about 5 years after I had married and said, I just bought a business and I would love for you and your husband to come down and run it. And I thought, wow, I love my father, but man, is he manipulative? Is he ulterior motive, He
Mhm.
wants me down there. And I sat down with my husband, and at that point, we had 2 children. And I said, look, before we buy a house, get established, they start school, get roots. Do we want to move to Florida? Because we always said we would retire in Florida. And,
Oh, right.
and he said, no, let's do it. And that's how we got to Florida. And I've been here ever since.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you're rooted,
I'm rooted. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. April is here.
Hi, April. Wow. How you doing today, good girl? She's a sweetheart. She's so supportive.
I know. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rhiannon.
Hello, Rhiannon.
Hi. Oh, this is wonderful.
Yes, everybody's here.
So, what happened with your your schoolmates and stuff? Do you still keep in touch with them?
With who?
With your schoolmates? Like your friends and stuff that when you moved away?
they're at my age. There's a lot who have gone to the other side.
Uh,
I really established friends here as I grew and raised my children and became involved in the community and the school, the churches, and then my career. So, no, it dwindled probably, I would say, 3 to 4 years after. Everybody couldn't travel as it wasn't easy to travel back then.
so what was the business that your father was in? Or
My father came to Florida because he was a carpenter constructor, and he found that the small town that we reside in was hopping. And being a contractor, he thought, I can build and I can establish myself here, not have to deal with the weather and the snow. And he ended up, because he was purchasing so much, he ended up buying a hardware store, and he wanted my husband and I to manage that.
oh wow.
So we did. We did.
So what brought you to the tarot land and
Oh,
divination and stuff like that?
tarot land. Wow.
Let's just get right into it.
Well, I was born oh, wait, let me go back now. When we were in Canada, my grandmother and my grandfather lived with us. We had a big 2-story house. And the reason why that we lived with them or they lived with us, I'm not quite sure, was because unfortunately my grandfather had polio and he needed consistent care and he had a hardware store. Isn't that interesting? He ran a hardware store, had to give up his business because of the disease. And my grandmother, who was always mystical, my whole family was mystical, took her skill of card reading and became a professional in order to bring income into the house. So I was raised with my grandmother upstairs constantly doing readings and clients, and my mother downstairs taking care of us and her father. And my bedroom was right off my grandmother's room where she did readings. And lots of times I would be with my door closed, listening to her consulting people. So tarot cards, now she did the Lenormand card, she had the Gypsy witch cards, but my mother would play with them, and we talked about astrology because my mother loved astrology. Her sister, my aunt, did palm readings, and her other sister did tea leaf readings. So nothing was unusual for me in that household.
That sounds amazing to me. To have all that, to be surrounded by that.
Yes, and the beauty of it was my father's father was an herbalist, so he cured with herbs and what he put in his garden and tonics. So it was so natural that there wasn't any like I'm a norm. Well, I shouldn't say norm. I'm educated and raised in a regular culture, and the mysticism is taboo and off limits. That I never had to deal with that.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, definitely.
Okay.
Kelly from Phoenix Fire has joined us.
Thank you.
So, and everybody agrees that is wonderful, what you were talking about with your family and being surrounded by it.
Fortunate, yes.
So April says, I really struggle with Gypsy Witch. I wound up just using them like an oracle deck.
Wow, did she really, April? That's interesting. And when I saw those cards, the symbolism, my mom would explain to me the symbolism of the cards. And that's what fascinated me about symbolism, because I was too young and it was in English. Now, these cards were in English. Remember, I'm French Canadian. I can't read English. So I learned to be able to interpret them by the symbols. And also later on, when we moved to New York, my mother I used to call her the town counselor, because the woman would come over and have tea or coffee, and they would start talking about their issues. And my mom would take out the cards and she would let me sit there, but she would always say, keep it private, don't ask questions, don't repeat what you hear.
Oh.
And it really acclimated me to understanding the full range of emotions and life challenges and relationship difficulties at a young age. And I found that, Carla, to work two ways. Number one, it did influence me, and I was quite cautious about marriage and relationship and men, because what I was hearing was the problems with men. So I caution everybody in that way, looking back on my own education of that. Does that make sense also for everybody?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally understand that. I grew up with not a significant male figure, plenty of them.
Yes.
But they were not allowed to have any say over my sister and I's upbringing. So it was very,
Yeah.
the man was in his place, I guess. I don't know.
I
didn't just say that, did I?
It's okay.
Yeah. So we have a few comments here. Farah says, it seems there's always someone else in the family who's spiritual. Yeah, definitely. Somebody that influences you to want to go down that path.
Yeah. And sometimes it's an aunt. Sometimes, I hear a lot of times, oh, my aunt, she was taboo and we couldn't talk about it, or an uncle. But yes, you're absolutely right, Farah. There's usually a family member somewhere that you can learn a lot from.
And it's wonderful. And Kelly says you have a great supportive system in your family, and that is a blessing.
It is. Again, I'm blessed. Yes.
Rhiannon says you should do some videos on the Gypsy Witch.
Oh, yeah. I guess I could do that. Yeah. They're sacred to me. They're special to me. And they hold the memories of my grandmother. Let me finish by maybe go ahead. I know you have some people that are commenting, and then I'll finish the story.
Oh, B just says there is a separate guidebook for the Gypsy Witch for those that do have a little trouble with it. And I think that's amazing. I'm not familiar, so I would take all the help I could get. And Kelly said that her grandmother was French Canadian.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. Susie, her side is French Canadian. Oh, her maiden name is Trudeau. Oh my God.
Having a conversation. And I'm getting chills because there's some connection there. There's undoubtedly why we meet again this time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Oh, okay. Kelly says your mom kept her men in their places. Your mom is queen. Yeah. Let's see. Make sure I don't want to miss anything. Celtic Oracle deck that goes into detail with symbolism, and I don't know if I'll be able to read it or not. Rhiannon says kind of like the Lenormand, but with more cards. Is that what the Gypsy Witch?
Exactly, yes.
Oh, gotcha.
And very much with the 52 regular playing cards, because on the left-hand corner, I believe, is you have your aces, your clubs, your hearts, and your spades, because the tarot really comes from the everyday playing cards. In fact, there is some people who believe that originally there was first the tarot cards. And the reason the tarot cards became playing cards was to hide them from the Inquisition and the burning of the libraries in Alexander. So they made them look like they were harmless, mundane. And it was a game called Tarucci. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. You just have so much, like, you pretty much know what, if somebody has a question, you've got an answer. And I'm like, oh,
that's not good.
Oh, no, that's wonderful. I love that. All right. So now I'd like to know a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Okay.
How long have you had your YouTube channel, Carol?
I think the middle of January 2019. It's almost 4 years now.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Thank
So what
you.
made you decide to come to YouTube?
Ah, um, okay. Well, it was the idea that I know what my purpose is in life, and I had gone through quite a let's say transition. I I think it would be better maybe if I decided if we could go and talk about my radio career. Can we do that first, and
Oh
then
my goodness, absolutely. Yes, please.
we can segue into the
Mhm.
that way. Okay. Of course, being brought up, I love the tarot. I've studied astrology, yada, yada. And while I was studying astrology, taking courses, the astrologer, the instructor, and I became very close friends. And one day she said, "Hey, let's go have lunch, but I have to broadcast and come to the studio. As soon as the broadcast is over, we'll go have lunch." I said, "Fine." So long story short, go to the studio. She introduces me to the program director, and I thought I was going to be sitting waiting for her as she broadcast. He said, "No, just as long as you don't make any noise, come on in." And during the commercials, he was asking me, "So you're taking astrology?" "Yes." And then the astrologer, Jeanette, said, "Carol's a tarot reader." And his eyes lit up. He said, "Tarot reader?" He said, "Tell me more." So I told him a little more. And he asked me if I wished to audition because he would like me as a guest speaker.
Oh,
So I did. I auditioned, not on the air. You go into a studio and they make you audition a mock audition. And I did okay. And he had me on his show whenever he had an opening. And it went very well. I did live tarot readings on the radio. I think it was about 6 months after a friend of his found out about me in another area of where I'm from, and asked me to audition, and I did, and he liked me, and he made my show became very popular. Um, I had my own slot. I became a radio host, and I did 2 shows, and that lasted for 16 years.
oh my,
And
you
I
have so
loved
many
it.
layers.
I loved it. And unfortunately, in my career, my husband had cancer that got really it got bad.
Okay.
And he needed full-time help. He was in a wheelchair. He needed full-time help. And I say that unfortunately because his cancer got so bad so quickly that there wasn't that adjustment period like you do for some types of cancer.
Right.
And because he needed help, and I thought, I'm going to lose this man,
Yeah.
I decided to just give up my career and to take care of him. So after I did that and he passed away, I kind of took a sabbatical, and that's what I was struggling with when you asked me how I got into the tarot, because
Absolutely, I
let
understand.
it go. I let it go. I didn't do any more readings. We also had 2 businesses. My husband and I also had 2 other businesses besides my career, and I needed to liquidate those and take care of that. I did, and then in that same time frame before my husband passed away, I was also taking care of my aunt who had dementia.
Oh
And
my
what's
goodness.
fascinating and so good about God is that while both of them, I unfortunately had to put my husband in hospice because he was unable to eat and digest food, and I couldn't take care of him at home. I put him in hospice, and my aunt, whose dementia got to the point where I couldn't help her, I put her in hospice. And the hospice that I put them both in, and again, this is God intervention, were next to each other, but they were in different buildings. And and the nurses said, "Carol, while you walk from one of the hospices to the next one to go see," my husband was in one, my aunt was in the other one. and I was her sole caregiver because she did not have children. While you're walking that path, this is how spiritual the hospice people are. She said, while you're walking that path, let everything go. Let it all go. Ask God for strength while you go and see the other person. And I did that, and I only had to do that for maybe a month. And then the Lord took them both on the same day, believe it or not.
Oh my goodness.
The
Wow.
same day. Yes.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
So, yeah, everyone is pretty much in agreement with how amazing you are. One, and then what you've been through it's had to have been very tough. I mean, you chose to sacrifice what you really love to take care of somebody that you also really love.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Carla, that when you find out your purpose and what your sign is, your spiritual zodiac sign, anyone who is a Scorpio will tell you that you incarnate not to have an easy path. There is a lot that you can do and give and sacrifice for. And in a way, it isn't really a sacrifice because when it is done out of love, you don't even think about it's just a natural giving of that the connection you have, whether it was with my aunt or with my husband, that it's so different. It isn't like you feel put upon in any way, shape, or form. And the time, it's a teacher. That time you learn about yourself, you learn about how precious, and then when you have a fight, you say, why did we waste that hour of discord?
Yep.
You know, think back of all the times you woulda, coulda, shoulda, and that's the lesson. That's the letting go of who we are with our personality and trying to live from a soul consciousness.
And I love that you said that because I feel like so many people that don't know, they only see what, they think, why are you doing that? You have so much potential. But they don't understand that you are embracing because you know what you're here for. And that takes away exactly what you said. It takes away from the burden. It's not a burden. I
Mm-mm.
agree with that. And I think that also shows how wise and advanced spiritually I see you. That's how I see you.
Thank,
Definitely.
thank you, Carl.
Rhiannon wanted to know if you know what the transits were happening at the time in your chart, like what transits were happening at that time in your chart.
My rule of that's an excellent question, Rihanna, because in my spiritual upbringing and the lessons that I've learned from, remember, I had a very spiritual mother, still have a very spiritual aunt. My father was amazing, even though there was tons of dysfunction in my family. We could write a book about that, but between the dichotomy of my parents, them individually were such great teachers. And my mother and my own lessons were not to look at those tools, but just live day by day so that you're not anticipating something that you're foreseeing or you're perceiving, you're reading in the stars, but just to be present and to allow that you are on a different plateau at that point in your life and just allow the process to take over. It's much simpler that way.
Absolutely. Wow. Um, Anna Sarah. Anna Sarah's here, and she says she's a Scorpio, so that explains a lot. um, Susie says that explains a lot about her father. Her father was murdered when he was 16, and he was a Scorpio sun and Cancer moon, even though she wasn't sure of his rising.
Ooh,
Wow.
ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, yeah.
That's very interesting because I'd not heard that, but it does make sense.
I'll
You
tell
know.
something else about Scorpio, and this I learned from my mother, that when a Scorpio child is born, and I would certainly love to hear if Susie, since she's the, I'm going to say in-house astrologer, if she knows about this. But my mother used to say that when a Scorpio baby is born, because it is in the sign of death and rebirth, that there will be someone in the family, whether it is the father or the mother of that child, may pass away.
Oh,
And it had happened with my mother when I was born. And it happened when my son, who was a Scorpio, was born in his father's family. So I can honestly say that was true for our family.
yes, B, she is a Scorpio, and even in real sky, still a
Yes,
Scorpio.
yes. I have a stellium that's 4 or more planets in Scorpio.
Yeah. Wow. That to me is just amazing when you can put so much added, not just archetyping, but things that could possibly happen within, you know what I mean, the like associated with the zodiac sign like that, you
Yeah,
know, because it's one thing to archetype, but it's another when we are fulfilling our goals, our, you know, what we're here for.
right.
And kind of, like Rhiannon said, it can become self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk about because I know that you and I have talked about like some of the books that we've read, and some of the books that you've read lead me to believe that you also aren't just like tarot and divination, but how do you feel about witchcraft?
I think there's many forms of witchcraft, and of course we hear about the white and we hear about the dark. And I would say the closest that I got to witchcraft was paganism, and I certainly believe in pagan religion and the Lord, the for all of that legend. But you hear me call myself the practical mystic. I went
Right.
down that road.
Okay.
I've always felt like I was more of a mystic than a psychic. I would also call myself more of an intuitive mystic. And the
Okay.
reason I like the word mystic is because, again, my Christian upbringing, the the saints, Saint Francis of Assisi, Teresa of Avila, and she wrote a beautiful book that I just got through doing maybe probably during the time that I was a caregiver for my husband and my aunt, entering the castle, where she talks about the different steps of evolution and consciousness as we are going through, let's say, the dark night of the soul. So those mystics, to me, were a mystic is someone who's looking for a deeper meaning and a connection with God. That's basically what a mystic is. And I'm a practical mystic. I called myself a practical mystic because of the times that we are in. And then I found out that my life lesson number is also called a practical mystic. My life lesson number is a 22-4, and it's known as a practical mystic. Then I found out that the Scorpio sun sign and the moon that I have in the houses that they are also has to do with mysticism. So it always felt right, and I went with that.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I that kind of now I know why your channel is called Practical Mystic Carol.
Yep, yep. I want my feet on the ground, but I want my head to um, inspire to spirit, to God, to more than what we can see, touch, feel, and taste.
Wow.
Not that that's anything wrong with that, because that's part of our essence.
So, okay, I'm going to get really deep then. I'm just going to go for it. What
Okay,
is
let's put my seatbelt on. Hold on.
okay? Yeah, put your seatbelt
Okay, I'm ready.
on. So, what is God to you? Who
What is
is God? What is
God
God?
to me? Who is God to me? Is that your question, Carla?
Mm-hmm.
Everything. The beginning, the end, everything.
Hmm.
there's no definition because that would limit him. So
Absolutely.
I can't really give him one. I can say I feel, I sense. I mean, I don't think it's a he, that's for sure. But it was when during my most traumatic experiences in life that there was a natural connection when all else failed to go to that source. And I do remember that when I had to come to the United States and not knowing the language, just being thrown in school and struggling with that. There was that feeling that I'll get through this. And then other things that had happened throughout my life that were traumatic. That source was always there for comfort. I could rely on it no matter what. And I still do today.
What kind of connection do you feel you have with God? I mean, I know I'm getting deep, but I want to.
Because something came to my mind. The gentleman that is in my life right now that I love dearly always says to me, when are you going to stop thanking God? Because I will go down. Let's say we're traveling somewhere and there's this beautiful scenery. I'll say, oh God, thank you for that. And it's so natural that I see it in everything.
Mhm.
And you'll always make that comment. You thank God for everything. You know, those trees are going to be there. But to me, it's like, no, those trees are there. But how I see them is because of his gift to the earth, that he created that. And I just thank him. And I don't even think about it, but to answer that question, it's always there. It's always there.
That's amazing. Like I'm kind of getting off where I wanted to go here, but I want to talk to you some more about that, but I want to do that later. Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I want to ask you about that. So I will say one thing. It's amazing to me that, and I don't know if you've found this, and probably you have, with reading tarot and palmistry and, like the stuff that your aunts did, tea leaves, that, and here we are talking about God. So, I
Yeah.
mean, did you ever get any type of backlash from that, from like being associated with both?
Hey, no, you have to be. I'll tell you where I really had to be careful is when we moved to Florida, and then the small town that we moved to, the educational system at that time when my children were ready to go to school was the the public schools. My husband and I felt were not up to par, so we decided to put them in a quote unquote Catholic school.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's get this picture. I have two boys going to a Catholic school, and their mother is a tarot reader. That's
Yeah.
not going to fly.
No. That's quite interesting. Yes. How did that go?
Well, number one, it was. I mean, I had it kind of shrouded. I mean, it wasn't anything that I, advertised about. But I was also but I got along with all the nuns and some of the lay teachers, and I ended up being the art mother who used to come in and do art with the school. And if the kindergarten teacher didn't show up, they would call me to come in to be the kindergarten teacher. And Carla, to answer your question a little deeper, I struggled with that, thinking, what happens if a mother found out I am a tarot card
Yeah.
reader? Which remember, I was teaching in a college and it was closed down. My course was closed down because someone wrote to the bishop and said, we don't want tarot being taught at the college. So I always struggled with that. If they only knew who I was, that
Yeah.
taboo, but it never got out. It never got out.
And it's unfortunate because I feel like, you know, because you don't, I mean, the one thing I know about you is you take your spirituality very serious, and
Yes,
it's
yes,
something that, you research, and all the connections that you make with tarot and the spiritual path that tarot represents are, it's so knowledgeable, and I respect it. I am, like, you're my go-to. And so knowing that, and then knowing that, or living in fear of being judged for that, I get it. And it's so hard. You just want to be able to say, yeah, but you just don't understand. God is here. God is in this.
yes, yes.
And it's
And
just,
tarot
yeah,
is really it's a book of knowledge. The tarot is spirituality at its core.
yeah,
And if you look at all of the ways that we have tools for the personality, i.e., you're very much into the Myers Briggs,
yes,
but there is everything was about personality, and that was okay in psychology. But psychology was based on the word psyche, which has to do with the soul. And
oh,
at one point, we got away from that. Carl Jung brought it back. I think William Glasser, another psychologist, brought it back. Sigmund Freud talked about the soul, the importance of it. But my point is, when you study the tarot, you understand that life is a journey, a step in consciousness, elevation of consciousness, and that we get on that path with our personality self. But as we grow, we're seeking for what's my purpose? What am I here for? What's the
yes.
picture?
Hmm.
That's when we look for these other tools, i.e., astrology, the Enneagram. Do you know the Enneagram is used by the Jesuit priests? And
No,
it's an old mystic way of spirituality and personality typing.
it makes
No,
sense.
I believe that Farah talked about that when you were interviewing her.
Hmm.
But the Enneagram is another, well, it's Sufi. It was in the Sufi. Enneagram, let me explain what it means for people who are not familiar with it. The word Enneagram, and it's spelled E-N-N-A, no, Enneagram, comes from the Greek word, two words. And Enne means nine, and gramma means point. So the Enneagram is the 9 points or the 9 consciousnesses of the personality, and their opposite, which is what the distortion is. And this was being taught with Sufism. It was brought into Islam. And then all of us know about George Gertrude. He found out about it. He brought it to the West. And then from the West, I don't know what psychologist, I don't recall that history, but it finally got back into the United States. And then the Jesuits took it and they did it in the retreats. And it's all about learning how to understand God through your personality type.
I love that.
Yep,
I
yep,
absolutely love that.
yep.
So Amy from Strength Reverse is here.
Oh, hello. Nice
Um,
to see you, Amy.
I am like blown away every time I hear something from what we would call esoteric type stuff that we don't know about, because it's either hidden or we just didn't look for it. But you know, um, like the Essenes is what comes to my mind. It's like,
Yes, yes,
we learn about them from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I feel like they were definitely either druid or had like pagan type things that they
yes, they did. They did.
did did all the time. So it's like, anyway,
Yeah,
yes,
and the
yes,
Enneagram was hidden for a long, long time as well. It was an oral tradition and it was not to be told. And then finally, when it came to the West with Gertrude, he brought it out into the light. and then the Jesuit priest started teaching it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what other forms of divination, like list them for me? What do you specifically use?
Definitely numerology.
Oh yeah.
Of course, the tarot, as you know. I do sometimes typing with the Enneagram. I, I, as far as astrology, I want to kind of put a side note on that. I took and became a Western astrologer, as you know, with my friend. Then, about 10 years ago, I got into esoteric astrology, and that was like, poof, that really, I love Western astrology. There's a lot you can do with that, and a lot I don't even know. But when I got into the esoteric astrology, and are you familiar with that, Carla?
Just from what Farah has talked to me about.
Okay. That system is, and without getting into it, it focuses more on the soul
Mm.
essence of who you are from your date of birth. And it has three pillars that I found to be that resonated with me. When, and of course the seven rays, which are the seven streams of consciousness, that some of the all of the zodiacs, some of them are two, some are three, will resonate with those seven rays. But the three pillars that kind of emphasize what I'm doing in this part of my life is service is the first thing, that you service through compassion, community work, or do something that's going to help another individual. That's number one. Number two is study, to always seek to know more. And basically, the Oracle of Delphi, man, know thyself. That's basically what it is, that we really never know who we are. And if you think of that statement, you realize that when you go back and you meditate or evaluate or look at your journal or talk to someone, they say, wow, you've really changed. So now that I have changed, or you and I have changed, then our consciousness has also evolved. And a way to check that is to go back and read a book you read 2 or 3 years ago and watch how you interpret it differently, how it says, oh, I didn't, I went right past that. That didn't make sense to me. Now I connected with ABC. But that pillar of constantly studying was something that also resonated with me. And then the third one is the importance of quieting down and meditating. So those are the three pillars of esoteric astrology, also connected to esoteric psychology, which is theosophy. And I'm very much into studying. Theosophy was founded by H.B. Blavatsky, and her book is Secret Doctrine. And then, of course, esoteric astrology from theosophy. You have Anne Helen, I can't think of her name, Bailey, who has written many volumes on esoteric astrology and the seven rays. And all of these are lifetime studies, as you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. B asks if you read the Lenormand cards, and I'm pretty sure isn't that kind of how you started, or maybe that's
No. I mean, I never when I decided to be a reader. I decided I didn't want to do the Lenormand because the tarot is what fascinated me the most.
Oh, okay.
So I went out and got a tarot deck. So yeah, they were there, but I never, I mean, I didn't study them like I studied the tarot.
Yes, Rhiannon, you can definitely watch the replay. I appreciate you being in here, and I love you.
Yes, thank you, Rhiannon, for everything.
So that's understandable. I love that there's replay because it's nice to be able to pop in and
yes, yes.
But yeah, absolutely.
Everybody has something to do.
So I wrote down the theosophy and Blavatsky.
Yes, Madam Helen Blavatsky.
Okay.
Well, no, Blavatsky. I apologize. Blavatsky.
Blavatsky.
Blavatsky. Yes,
Okay.
Russian. She was Russian.
I'm gonna be checking that out. That's awesome. Okay, so I know that you're very supported. Um, I have a question. Just kind of came to my mind. So when you were a radio host,
Uh-huh.
did you go by just Carol, or did you go by Practical Mystic Carol then too, or
Um,
astrologer, or?
I was one of my shows was called Eve the Mystic, and the other one was Consulting Eve. They didn't want me to use my real name for protection,
Mhm.
so I used a middle name. So Eve the Mystic is when I did live. People would call in and ask questions, and I would do astrology and numerology and tarot. And then Consulting Eve was when I interviewed book authors, all on self help, new thoughts, psychology, mysticism. I
Wow.
would get books from them, I would read the books, and then I would do an interview with them. And
Wow.
then when I didn't have authors, I would just do a show on things that I wanted to present to my audience concerning mysticism, healing, body work, topics of that interest.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's why I have so many books.
Oh, I'd love to look at all of them. Um, so my daughter is a psychology major, and I remember asking her about Carl Jung,
Hmm.
and he wasn't the only one. I asked a few other, that we hear about all the time, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't think we're going to study them, or it's not what she say, it wasn't mandatory, or it wasn't on the curriculum because they are considered mystics."
Yeah.
And I thought, really?
And
That's just
again, they've gotten away from that because people and the word God and the word religion, mainstream, there's a resistance to that right now.
okay. Thank you, Farah. Yeah, because I need to rewrite that. You already know what I wrote. Okay. Okay, so you explained why you call yourself intuitive. So you don't think you're psychic, or do you believe that you have any of those clairs?
Yes, I do believe that I have some of those abilities, precognition, and it happens very quickly, which I'm sure a lot of those listening in the chat room will identify with. I will be doing something, and then I'll either hear a noise or see a symbol, and then everything opens up, and there's a meaning behind it. My biggest cue for me is my dream state. What my dreams tell me symbolically, I get insights of. Sometimes I'll be with someone and there'll be an immediate recognition. I'll get a sensation in my body. And I don't say anything, of course. I wait to if it develops, or I guess another very important point that I've learned in my spirituality is you don't give unsolicited advice, and you always ask for permission to go into someone's energy field. I would never ever look at someone and try to see if there is an aura or an energy or what I sense from them. In fact, I try to close down. Most people who are water signs really do have to protect themselves because we're like sponges. And um, I think it was, uh, who was it? One of someone in Theosophy. Um, I think I apologize. I'm having too much information coming in, but they talked about diseases of the mystic. And
Oh,
yes, and what that basically means is that when you open yourself up to receive, you better be clear
mm.
and be and make sure that you release it, because you do log in. Energy is all over. Energy is everything, and that's what you're reading. You're reading energy when you're a clair. So you have to be careful of diseases. And certainly I felt that when I was doing a lot of tarot reading in my home. I always cleaned the area. My mom used to say, because we also had my grandmother, that make sure that they walk in the same door that they leave. Now, some people might say that's suspicious, but I'm a true believer of it, because you're going to take in your guides, your energy, your problems, all of that stuff, and then some of it gets pushed out. Some of it, they don't want to go there wherever the
Oh,
information is going to flow. So that guide could be waiting there at the door, waiting for that. I call it the source, the core,
yeah.
to go back. And if that person decides to leave in another area, that guide is left there. Where's he going to go? He's going to go to wherever there's electromagnetic energy.
Oh my
That
goodness.
makes sense?
Yeah, that's great advice.
Makes
Yes,
you go back.
absolutely. Um, Rhiannon has to take off here, but she was hoping that you would share the story of your grandma and the Gypsy witch that you were talking about earlier.
They share the story about her.
About your grandma and the Gypsy witch.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I really don't I mean, I was very young. I remember her being very loving, always busy. And when we moved away, of course, I was disconnected from her. But yeah, she's very sacred to me. And I will add this. You just brought something to my mind. When I did my first psychic fair, being invited again through that astrologer who had a lot of clout in our community. I remember being a, being a little fearful about doing this psychic fair and getting up on stage and talking about everything. And I remember in my prayer saying, Grandma, if you can, please be with me and guide me, because this is from you. My gift is part from you, my heritage, and I need your help. And I just felt this feeling of relief and comfort and calmness, and I was able to pull it off, if you say. So yes, I think she was always with me, but I didn't want to ask of her for some reason. I think it's because she was so inundated with other things. I felt that. Again, my room was right there, and at nighttime there was always this energy, voices in my bedroom. I was never afraid, but I knew that she may not have been able to dissipate it, clear it all. She was overworked and very tired. That was the
Wow.
energy that I felt,
Wow. Yeah,
which will lead me to another thing that I would like to say that I was taught.
absolutely.
Uh, I was taught that when a psychic or a mystic or anyone that gives information does not ground themselves, they will take their energy from their body, their
Oh,
physical body, instead of getting it grounded from the earth or father sky. So I don't think my grandmother grounded herself or knew how to ground herself. One of the key things that people will tell you that will happen to people who are very psychic and give of themselves all the time and give up their energy, not the energy of the ground or father sky, they will be grounded through their guides, through protecting them. And how they do that, it has been said, I don't know if it is been claimed as true, they will gain weight. I noticed my grandmother gaining an enormous amount of weight. And what my mom would say is she was vanished after she did her readings. Well, what was she doing? She was taking all of her physical five senses energy, and she would have to go, where do we feel like we're nourishing ourselves? We eat, and the protein rebuilds our body, and we feel better. We don't feel vanished. We feel fulfilled again. And my grandmother through the years just kept on gaining weight. And when I researched that and was being taught by, I've taken many courses, that came to mind, that if you don't ground yourself, they will ground you in some way.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Wow.
Again, I can't prove that. I can only say that I ground myself and I'm able to do more clients than if I don't ground myself.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't want to use my energy. There's no, and that is part of the diseases of the mystics because you dissipate your, your system, your body, your mind, your immune system, and
yeah.
everything works on the sympathetic nervous system. Remember that. And
Yeah.
the adrenal glands, it just uses your adrenal glands.
It makes a lot of sense. Um, I think grounding is extremely important. Um, Susie had mentioned that she felt like she knows you from another life.
I feel that. Wow, Susie, I'm so glad you said that. From the day that I saw your beautiful face on your channel, there was a recognition. So who knows how many lifetimes ago, but I'm glad that we have crossed paths again.
So,
Yes,
and you obviously believe in past life. I mean, that's
yes.
kind of like everything points to that in our birth charts and our numerology.
Yeah, yeah. Or and of course, again, back to my upbringing, my mom, would talk about that.
Um, Amy asks, how do you ground? What do you do to ground?
Basically, I start at the hip bone, Amy, because the hip bone again is esoterically, it is so much with the hip bone that I don't want to get too much about, and the tailbone. So what I do is I visualize a tree from the tailbone going through and you have to visualize the chair, if there's a carpet, if there's a concrete slab, and then when you feel you are in the earth, when you feel that the ground and the earth, and you'll be able to feel it, it becomes very easy. Then you put out your roots, then you anchor those roots. And then you breathe in, and from there you get the energy. Now, when you get to the top chakra, I also like to go ahead around 18 inches above, and I kind of visualize a golden ball, and from that I pull that energy because I believe in the two energy forces, silver and gold, silver representing feminine, gold representing male. We are made up of both. I will go ahead and pull down the male energy, and then I will pull up the female energy, Mother Earth. And then once they hit the heart chakra, which is the center point, many of you know you have three above, three below, I circle it, and then I let it go, inhalation, inhalation, in that pattern. So I hope that helps you.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I know that helps me. Well, because you want to stay balanced with the male and the female.
You do, you do. You want it from both. But even if you just ground it and from Mother Earth, I think you would be all right. That is just my personal way of doing it. But I also feel that when you open up your chakras up on the seventh, you're allowing that inspiration to come through also. It's
Mm.
all a matter of preference. Work with it and you will know. You will know. You'll sense it. And Amy, you're a fellow Scorpio. You're there already. You're there already. Ah.
Yeah. She says thank you. Um, so who are your influences then besides your family? Do you have outside influences? I mean, I know you've just named a couple.
I mean, you meaning living entities, influences?
Yeah, like I mean, they could be famous, obviously. I know you mentioned Carl Jung. Um,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Yes, I definitely enjoy Carolyn Mays, her work. Um, I had the pleasure of interviewing Greg Braden, who is a neuroscientist, and read
really.
one of his books. I also had the pleasure of interviewing Gerald Jombowski. Now, he is the founder of Attitudinal Healing, and he wrote a very, very touching, beautiful book called Teach Only Love. So a lot of those people that I interviewed, I became fans of and what their spirituality of. Now, I never was able to interview Carolyn Mays, but she's very much involved in my studies. There's so many, definitely Carl Jung. As far as astrology, I do like Leo and what's his name? Dan. I'm sorry, I'm having there's so many names going. Dan Rudrin. There's too many, Carly. You're putting me on the spot. No. But there are so many, and there's vast amounts. But to say that I follow one, I will say that I will follow the theosophy. I will definitely continue to look into those who founded theosophy and those who were taught theosophists and study their works. So it's almost like the offshoots of the main philosophy or teaching that I will follow as they continue down.
Susie asked if you were talking about Leo King.
If I was what?
Talking about Leo King.
That's it. Yep. Thank you, Susie. Yes.
Thank you, Susie. I'll write that down too. All right. Okay, so with you being extremely mystic, have you had experience with like paranormal ghosts or anything like that you know, or that you think was that?
I did. I had one that I probably will not forget because I still have not figured it out completely, and I will share that. Maybe somebody out there may have some insights in it. It was one evening, and I felt something kiss me, and I really thought it was my husband because my husband often would go to the restroom, but when he came back, he would have to go by my side of the bed. And he was such a loving, wonderful human being that he would sometimes kiss me on the lips. And sometimes I would feel it, sometimes I wouldn't. One night, I felt someone kissing me on the lips, and my hands were to my side, and I recall that I felt my husband was still near me, and it came to my consciousness that who is ever kissing me, it is not my husband. I opened my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, the force became stronger, where the kiss now became uncomfortable. And I felt like I better immediately, again, my teachings or spirit, it told me to keep my lips closed very tightly. And at that time, my body, I could not move. I was going to wake up my husband thinking, is it an intruder? Did somebody come in? But all I see is this blackness, and I could not move any part of my body. And my thought was, I am a child of God. And as soon as I thought that thought, it stopped.
Oh, yeah.
And I was able to see it, and it straightened up, and then it walked the perimeter of the bed, and it was a black cloak with red lights, and the lights were going around on the top part of the hooded individual, went around and went through to the closet, which usually are portals, windows, closets, or portals, and left. I was able to move them then and just, thank God, and try to figure it out. And till this day, I don't know what that was, other than the possibility that during the day I had a few clients that had come in that were quite traumatic and struggling with addictions.
Oh.
And for whatever reason, maybe one of them may have left something behind. I don't know. But that was the only way that I could validate or try to come to an understanding of why this happened. It never happened again. So, again, if anybody out there has any clues or insights, I would love to know.
I have an idea.
What?
Well, real quick, Farah asked if you listened or have read Manly P. Hall.
Oh, absolutely. I apologize. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm not familiar with
And
him.
of course, Carla, I'm aging myself, but I've been on this path for so long that I don't remember everybody that I've studied.
That's the same with me, honestly.
Yeah.
I know who I'm influenced by, like right at this time. That might change tomorrow, but so yeah, I feel like, because one of my questions is do you believe in like aliens or interdimensional beings? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, no doubt in my mind.
and April says that sounds like a succubus, and honestly, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, April. Yeah, you're validating that.
Yeah. Wow. So, like, have you ever had anything that you would like, or seen anything that you thought would be alien?
Um, Ghost, alien, visitations, yes. They usually come in one way, and then when I notice them, they'll hurry up and dissipate. I've never been able to communicate with an alien or an entity. I believe that I am capable and have attempted to talk to departed souls in order to bring peace to them in some ways, and feel like I've been validated through an odor, a sense, a feeling, something moving that I've
Mhm.
made that connection. But no, nothing that would say, oh, you're an alien, you're here. No, no, not that specific. At nighttime, though, I take that back, because sometimes in my bedroom, as I have something that I do at night. I kind of try to go back to what I did during the day and how I could change it. I kind of rescript. I did
Oh,
this, I did this, but the next time that this may enter into my path, I choose to please. I choose to do it this way. Whether I want to be more patient, whether I want to be more loving, or maybe I want to say no. Where is the strength to say no? I reevaluate everything. And sometimes when I'm doing that, there's rustling or moving around in the room that I know couldn't have happened because my room was moved. There was something there shifting. I think they get ready because I do a lot of dreaming at night. I dream all night long, all night long. And
wow.
trying to be, I don't know if they're healing me, changing me.
Do you keep a journal of everything?
I try to, yes. Sometimes I'll write it when I get up to go tinkle,
Right, that's what I do.
because
Yep,
I'll forget it, but I'll
yep.
write a little something. But for me, it's like an encyclopedia of knowledge, keeping my dreams.
Mhm. I agree. Susie said she had a woman tell her something that something was following her at the Whaley house. She gave her a button with a saint on it. It was the worst time of her life, but she's all better now.
Wow. Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that. Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Farah says, I believe when we connect to God, then there is good and evil, angels and demons. So many stories like yours. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's possible. Angels and demons, I believe, are the same.
They are. They are. And it's the evolutionary path they're on, or what they're choosing to manifest, and where their energy has come. And
Yeah,
some
they
of them
have free will. April says, I believe a better term would be there's certain demons and spirits that just use you for sexual purposes, but it's the energy that you give when you are in an aroused state.
everything is energy. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everything has a vibrational frequency and a vibrational tone. And I think with the coming of this new age, we are going to see more about sound and the effects of sound on the body, and how our cellular tissues are either in harmony or in disharmony about the sounds we are hearing.
Yeah. I was just thinking about something, and I wonder what you think about this, Carol, because when you told me the experience you had that your arms were down by your side, so you were laying on your back.
Yes.
So, do you believe in astral travel?
Yes. And I have astral traveled. Yes.
Well, what if somebody, say, was in a state like that, and so they're astral traveling, and say you're in a state like that, and they astral travel to you? They could be somebody that is trying to, they could be a human that's in their bed astral traveling, or they're in a ceremony of sorts astral traveling, and they're coming to you to feed off your energy. So they wouldn't necessarily have to be an angel or a demon. They could be doing that themselves. Maybe you attracted somebody, or, you know, it was
Excellent
just,
point.
I was thinking that we could see that.
Excellent point. As well as remember that the mind, the thought, just the thought alone. Remember, we have different. We're on different dimensions. We're
Mhm.
on the earth right now. You and I are conscious of that, and that's what we're aware of. But there is another Carla in another dimension, and the thought of what you just said, just by that thought, there is part of your essence, part of your energy anatomy that is there. So what you're saying is very feasible, and I believe
Yeah,
that 100%.
yeah, it's wild. It just made me think about that. That wonder if, you know, somebody astral traveling, we could probably see them if we were in that dream state, or if we're extremely psychic, we might be able to see them while we're awake too.
You
Like,
have to program yourself and ask for that. I think that I've been told by many people who are psychic and intuitives that I'm very, very much protected, and that I should not, to my benefit, try to take on more than I can handle and close down some of my ability, or I could go, and I don't want to use the word, but
yeah, yeah.
could go to the mad,
Mhm.
become
Like,
mad,
get lost in it.
get lost in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't ask to have an experience. Some people do, and they're able. I think the earth signs are excellent for that. Again, personality and your sun sign will tell you a lot more of what is conducive for you to do. Remember, you incarnated in that zodiac sign for a reason.
I think that alone is amazing, being able to archetype ourselves, and then going into our numerology chart, our astrology chart, or whatever, to be able to figure out our life's purpose alone is amazing.
And that is what esoteric astrology focuses on, the ascendant. Your
Oh,
rising sign is your soul purpose, where in
okay.
Western astrology, it's your persona, how you're perceived. And that's beautiful, and we need to know that. But esoteric astrology tells you that your rising sign is your life purpose. And once you know that, then you also understand which of the seven raises that you're here, the consciousness level that you're here and that you vibrate for, and then you work on that ray to better expedite and achieve your purpose.
Yeah, yeah, Farah has talked to me about that. That's okay. I'm gonna have to do some more digging on that too. So talking about protection, and like, um what you do on a daily basis, what does a normal day for Carol look like? So, like, when you get up till you go to bed, like, what is a normal day for you?
It's changed dramatically with changes that are out of my control. That's, so I'm still in the transformation. Remember, I had two businesses. I sold one, and now I just have one business. I am a landlord. I manage properties. That's on an everyday basis. I don't do any more readings that come into my home. I will do them online and on the phone. But an ordinary day right now, after I sold my business, my brother and I's, to be fair, business, I get up in the morning and I give thanks, and then I go like everybody does to the coffee pot, get my cup of coffee, and then I will do a reflection, and then I usually have something that I'm reading, and I will recap it or read a little bit more about it. I don't want to sound goofy, but I I pray. I do a lot of praying, the Lord's Prayer, the Hail Mary, um, prayers that I've learned. And once I feel I've done that, I then ask for protection for my children. I ask for protection who in the family is ill, healing. Um, After that, I'm kind of a particular house. I love my house to be organized and clean. So I'll do a little bit of that. And then I will get into studying a little more. Now that I'm doing YouTube, I think about what I want to create next.
Yeah.
I love to cook, so I do some cooking, welcome my partner home, and then I like to spend time with him whenever I can. But most of the time, I love to crochet. I love to do some artwork, some polymer clay. Haven't had time to do that, but I'll be doing something. What I need to learn to do, Carla, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, which is something that now with the new year, I need to be more in what I call space, where I want to now sit down and listen. And that is in meditation, which I do a small meditation in the morning. I should have said that in my chair. I do a small, no more than 15, 20 minutes. But it doesn't seem like I'm listening enough, because I need to just chill and do more listening. I am busy being busy. And I'm telling myself, I want to change that.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Believe me. How about we go into the next little phase of my
Sure.
interview chat is everybody else can play this in chat too, is our word association.
Oh, okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. First one is candle.
Light.
River.
Journey.
Ooh, yes. Eagle.
Sea.
Wow. Ground.
Good.
And then the last one is light.
Life, did you say LIFE?
Light, like you said for candle, it's light.
Light, power.
Yes. I love that. Yep. Eventually, I'm going to do a video on just people's answers and then talk about them and stuff, because I think they're...
That would be interesting, Carla. It's another form of divination.
Yeah. It's definitely a form of archetyping, I think. So I love it. And there's also something else that I want to run by you is I have so many questions for you, Carol, that I don't think we're going to cover them all in one. I would like to be able to do a part 2 with you, because you're just, I mean...
I do talk a lot. I apologize.
No. Oh, please. No. There's just so many, I call them rabbit holes or whatever, just things that I want to know about you.
Okay.
And we are over the hour. So I want to ask you a few more things because this one has been really deep. So I want to keep this one deep, and then maybe part two, we can get into like, like you talked a little bit about your hobbies and stuff.
All right.
But
All
maybe
right.
more stuff like that. But
Okay.
um, so let's talk about the astrology because you did that for what, 16 years you had your,
My show?
yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So along with just like a broadcast, you also talked about teaching.
Yes, I teached at the college. I teached at the local high school. I teached at the community. I had workshops. The radio station, of course, I had my own office. They would allow clients to come in to get personal readings there. So I did that. I also taught polymer clay at the local college, arts. So yeah, I did a lot of teaching, a lot of workshops through my associations with the people at the radio station, those that I contacted with book authors. There was always an invitation, well, do you want to do this? Are you able to do that? And that's what led me into teaching outside. Also locally, there was a community that had hired me to come in to their residence at the community, and I was teaching their numerology and the tarot for about 5 years. Again, with the onset of my husband needing me, I decided to give that up as well.
So what did you teach? Astrology?
Tarot and numerology. No, I never taught astrology. Tarot and numerology were and workshops on spiritual development, things of that nature. I did lots of workshops. Another another good thing about Scorpio, those Scorpios out there, that if you're studying esoteric astrology, one of the things that we come back this lifetime for is to work on the shadow. Scorpio, that sign indicates working on the shadow. So I learned about it. And then because of my studies, all those years I did shadow work, I decided to hold workshops with it. And it went over beautifully. People are just interested in getting rid of those conditionings that we are all programmed with in our childhood. And a lot of us don't realize just how programmed we are. Our perceptions are based upon an emotion that we learn from our nucleus family, as well as those who taught us in school, our religions, our communities. All those are in our cell tissues.
Yeah, I loved the video that you had just put out with the shadow work, the exercise.
Yeah, that one's easy. And you're not blaming anyone. What you're doing is owning it. And thank you, Carla, because those aspects that I didn't like about that employee that I had, what they led me to see that they were issues that my parents, and of course it's not to blame your parents, but those issues about that judgment came from them. And one of the things about being on the spiritual path is when you can detach from having to judge yourself or someone else. Let go of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to do.
It is very hard. It is because exactly what you had said. It was after that exercise that, I mean, obviously, you know, when you think you're doing shadow work and then, but yet if something is still irritating you or you realize, well, I still got a little bit more shadow work to do.
And
you know,
there's a misconception also that I always like to clear up with those who are taking any of my courses is the misconception of when we use the word addiction. Most people immediately sometimes have a visual of alcohol and a drug addict, someone putting, a syringe in their arm. But when you start thinking about psychology, an addiction is anything that you get upset over or angry about when your needs or what you perceive as what you need isn't coming to you. So it could be something as easy as you walk into a supermarket and all of a sudden that product that you went in for isn't on the shelf, and you're upset, and you're going to have an emotional response. You're going to get your adrenal going. You're going to put the cortisol in your body, and you are hurting yourself. That's what I mean by addiction, is without the stereotyping it that you're, you know, in an altered state of mind. That's an addiction that we have about ourselves, our preconceived ideas of how the outside world should be. Once you let go of that, then you go with the flow much easier. You have no expectations. What happens, happens. You prefer that the product was there, but you don't give it power to the point that it affects you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Believe me, because I got some stuff I want to talk to you about when we're done here. Absolutely. So Lisa Rhodes, I think I might be subscribed. It says, since this is my first time on here, some of you may not know me. I am an empath. I do tarot oracle. I do dream safety spells, spiritual communications. I'm no expert, but I've tried to help all I can.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's beautiful, because that's what I think most of us want to do, is just share our experiences and hope they help. And
Yeah. And
yeah.
and I did sidetrack your question. I apologize, but it just came to mind with that what she just shared. At one point at Thanksgiving, my children asked me, "Mom, what are you going to be doing?" Because they know I was always busy, again in a state of transition. I said, I want to go back to helping people, so I'm going to go on YouTube because that's where I can help. I'll teach what I know, and they can take from that. But yes, service is so important for me to help other people.
Absolutely. Oh, so she doesn't have a YouTube channel. Oh,
Oh,
well, maybe you need to get one. I'm
maybe
just
she needs to
kidding.
get one. Yeah.
But I mean, I would definitely subscribe, because I love that. I think anybody that just wants to, you
Share.
know, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And then I have to tell you, um, my friend Kelly, Phoenix Fire, she said, with all the shadow work I need to do on with all the shadow work she needs to do, she needs to stock up on winter clothing. I freaking love you,
Good to
Kelly.
have a sense of humor.
I know. Oh, she does. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
um, okay, so yeah, I want to stay on the deep with the astrology. So
Okay.
what I wanted to ask you is then, because you know a little bit about the real sky now,
Uh-huh.
um and it didn't affect your sun sign. Did it affect the other signs, your big three, or
It didn't affect my moon sign, my sun sign, but it did affect my rising sign
okay.
because of the degree of my rising sign was on the cusp. And as I was looking at that, it did make sense with that rising sign that it allowed me. But with the esoteric astrology, what is beautiful now is because it is my rising sign, which I shared with you, is your soul purpose. I can see why my previous rising sign, Cancer, and what I did because I was an adult child in my upbringing. I was always the caregiver, the nurturer, the one people could go to. Both my mom and my dad would consult me, but I saw that Cancerian, and now that I've maybe evolved, I hope that I have evolved, God willing, that with that new rising sign, which is Gemini, and what I know about esoteric astrology, oh my goodness, it made such complete sense of why I'm at this level in my path and why I have to refocus. And, like I said, I'm not a caregiver anymore. Everyone has gone to the other side right now that I needed to take care of. Even on my husband's side, I took care of both of his parents. So there, all of that nurturing Cancer energy is gone, and now I see the air element of Gemini, and it's so exciting, Carla. I'm so glad that I did it.
It's like, what are you doing now with your YouTube channel and everything? You are sharing, you're teaching. I mean, you are passing on knowledge that you have accumulated over this time that is just,
Yeah.
we're all like, yes, we're like,
But
feed us,
I'm
Carol.
older than you. You'll get there. You'll get there.
But I feel like that's kind of, isn't that kind of a little bit of Gemini, is that whole being able to
Yes,
communicate and
yes, it is.
yeah.
It is. But because again, it was on that cusp, that Cancer was like 2 degrees that I knew that I was using both. Plus,
Oh yeah.
your lineage. Now, everyone in the family is usually going to have a moon or a rising sign or a sun sign that's similar, that comes back in families. So there is 2 Geminis in my family. There is 2 Cancerians. There's Scorpios. So look at that, and you'll see that it's all a mixture, but basically, usually about 4 or 5 signs out of the 12 zodiac signs will be similar. Grandfather, aunts, uncles.
Wow. So my other question is I think I've asked Farah, and I've not asked Susie, is like, if you come across somebody that doesn't know their birth time, how would you run a chart on them? How would you do that?
Unfortunately, it's I do run a chart, but it's more of like a solar chart.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not as deep. You can't get into a lot of the spirituality of astrology that I like to get into, because the nodes of the moon, very important about your life purpose. Where what house Chiron is in. Now you're going to find out where Chiron is. And that is definitely, seems like right now astrologers are finally paying a lot of attention to Chiron, but you don't know what house it is, what department it is. So, and for me, truth. I mean, I resonate, I want to bring truth, and I don't want to guess when I'm doing work. So I don't give as much as information that I could, because I'm not solid and feel like it is grounded in the truth or the philosophy or what I feel is really genuine from me. Sometimes I'll get a hit and say, yes, go ahead and say this, see what happens, and get feedback. But I tend to want to have to make sure that I'm coming from a place of sincere truth for that person that I'm reading for.
That sounds a lot like what Farah had said. And I've always wondered, because I mean, how would you do that? But that makes sense, because you're going to see things that'll tell you, oh, okay, well then you must have this in this house, or
And you can also add to that, Carla, and I'm sure Farah does. You back it up with numerology. You back it up with what the tarot's telling you. You back it up with the Myers-Briggs personality and the shadow. You back it up with the Enneagram. You can back it up with a lot of other sciences.
that's true. That's absolutely true. Okay, so all right, we're going to be wrapping this up, but I would like to let anybody know that I love to get to know you. I love to get to know any of you.
Yeah,
And
me
if
too.
you would like to come on and chat with me, my email is in my description of my YouTube channel, I think, is, or the about me or whatever I think it is. But or leave a comment in chat, and I'll definitely contact you, because I think it's great to get to know everybody in this manner. And then also, before I go, I would like, because I would like to schedule a part 2 with you, Carol,
Yes.
is maybe I know everybody has questions, and they know that Carol's going to have a good answer. So let's put some of these questions in the chat or in the comment section. And then we can talk about this in part 2.
Oh, that's a great idea. That way we do take care of those in chat that have wanted to ask questions, because I felt like there was questions being addressed. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, and
Absolutely.
I apologize for not getting to them.
Oh, well, you know what? That's why we got to do part two. And then we'll have, another hour and a half to get to those questions.
Get to the bottom of this.
All right. I just want to say thank you to everybody that came into chat and, joined us.
Yes,
And
thank you, everyone, for being
yes.
here.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And we'll see you in the next video oh, you know what? But before I go, Carol, I'm forgetting. Do you have something coming up on your channel or any other
Still in
expectations?
the process of deciding where I want to go. I can always continue with what I started, but I'm not sure just yet. I have some great ideas. So stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Absolutely. All right. Well, I love you guys, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Blessings.